The wedding dress hung like a ghost in the morning light, its ivory silk catching shadows Clare wished would swallow her whole. She stared at her reflection, seeing a stranger wearing her sister's face. Her sister's life. Her sister's future. "You have to do this." Her mother's voice cracked as she fastened the pearl necklace with trembling fingers. "Vanessa is gone. She left us with nothing but debts and shame. This marriage is our only chance." Claire's throat tightened. 3 hours ago, Vanessa had disappeared with her lover, leaving behind only a hastily scrawled note. "He's blind. He'll never know the difference." The cruelty of it stole Claire's breath. "I can't," she whispered. Her mother's grip tightened on her shoulders. "You will. For the family. For survival." The chapel doors opened with a sound like thunder. Claire's legs moved without permission, carrying her down the aisle toward Nathaniel Grant, the reclusive billionaire who believed his bride loved him. He stood waiting, tall and elegant in his tailored suit, the white cane in his hand held with quiet confidence. As she approached, he turned his head slightly. His face was younger than she'd imagined, perhaps 35, with sharp features softened by anticipation. His sightless eyes seemed to look directly at her. "Vanessa," he said softly, and Claire's heart shattered at the tenderness in his voice. "Yes," she whispered. The lie burned her throat. The ceremony passed in a blur of borrowed vows and stolen promises. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Nathaniel's hand found hers with surprising gentleness. His fingers were warm, steady, and Claire felt like a thief stealing something precious. At the reception, she played her part perfectly, smiling at the right moments, speaking in the softer tone she'd practiced. But with each passing hour, the weight grew heavier. "You're quieter than usual," Nathaniel observed as they danced, his hand resting lightly on her waist. Claire's pulse quickened. "Wedding nerves." He nodded, but something in his expression suggested he was filing away every difference, every small inconsistency. Claire realized with growing terror that while Nathaniel couldn't see her face, he could hear the tremor in her voice, feel the tension in her body, sense the fear radiating from her like heat. As evening fell, Claire found herself in the back of Nathaniel's car, driving toward his estate and a future built on lies. The city lights blurred past the windows. Nathaniel sat beside her in comfortable silence, his wedding ring catching the passing streetlights. "Are you happy?" he asked suddenly. The question caught her off guard. "Of course." "You hesitated." "I'm just tired," he nodded. But Claire could feel his attention sharpening, his other senses cataloging every breath, every heartbeat, every lie she told. As they pulled into the circular drive, Claire stared up at the imposing mansion. Gothic towers stretched toward the dark sky, warm light spilling from dozens of windows, creating an illusion of welcome that she knew was false. "Welcome home." "Mrs. Grant," Nathaniel said. Claire closed her eyes, wondering if she would ever deserve to be called by that name. The Grant mansion felt like a museum after hours, all polished marble and hushed whispers. Claire moved through it like a ghost, careful not to disturb anything that might reveal her as an imposter. The first week passed in careful choreography. Claire learned Nathaniel's routines: morning coffee at 7, classical music while he worked, dinner at precisely 6:30. She studied his habits like a scholar, noting how he moved through the house with unconscious grace, how his fingers read the world through touch. But Nathaniel was studying her too. "You've changed your perfume," he observed one morning over breakfast. Claire's coffee cup rattled against its saucer. "I thought I'd try something new." "It's lighter, floral." His tone was neutral, but Claire caught the question beneath it. "Do you like it?" "I do, though I confess I missed the jasmine." Claire had never worn jasmine in her life. "I'll consider going back to it." "Only if you want to." These small moments accumulated like evidence. The way she forgot to hum while arranging flowers, her startled reaction when he mentioned a restaurant they'd supposedly visited together, the careful way she moved through conversations, testing each word before speaking it. 2 weeks into their marriage, Nathaniel made an announcement that stopped Claire's heart. "I've scheduled the surgery," he said quietly over dinner. "Surgery?" "The procedure we discussed. To restore my sight." He set down his fork carefully. The doctor is optimistic. If successful, I could regain partial vision within months. Claire's world tilted. In all her frantic preparation, she had never considered this possibility. When? She managed. Next month. I wanted to wait until after the wedding, until we were settled. His voice carried a quiet excitement that made Claire's deception feel even more cruel. I know you've been encouraging me to try again, and you're right. I want to see you, Vanessa. I want to see my wife. That night, Claire stood in her bathroom, staring at her reflection. Her face was similar to Vanessa's, but softer. Rounder eyes. Her hair was a shade lighter, her eyes a different shape. Once Nathaniel could see, her deception would be exposed within moments. She considered running, but where would she go? Her mother had made it clear their financial survival depended on this marriage. The family business was drowning in debt, and Nathaniel's wedding gift had been their only lifeline. More troubling still, Claire realized she didn't want to run. Something about Nathaniel's quiet strength, his gentle humor, his obvious intelligence had begun to affect her. The way he listened when she spoke, really listened, made her feel seen in a way she'd never experienced. The careful respect he showed her was intoxicating. 3 days later, Claire was arranging books in Nathaniel's study when she found the letters. Dozens of them, tied with a velvet ribbon, all in Vanessa's handwriting. She opened one with trembling hands. My dearest Nathaniel, you asked me to describe the sunset. I hardly know where to begin. The sky bleeds crimson and gold like a wound healing in reverse. Claire's stomach turned. The prose was beautiful, poetic, nothing like the sister she knew. She opened another letter. I dream of the day you can see me, though I confess it terrifies me. What if the reality disappoints? What if I'm not as beautiful as your imagination has painted me? Find something interesting? Claire spun around. Nathaniel stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. I was just organizing, she stammered, dropping the letters. He crossed the room with that uncanny precision, stopping inches from her. His hand reached out, finding her face with gentle certainty. His fingers traced her cheekbone, her jaw, the curve of her lips. You feel different, he said softly. Claire's breath caught. Different how? Your face. It's softer. Your sister's letters described high cheekbones, a sharp jawline. His thumb brushed across her lower lip. These letters were written by Vanessa, weren't they? Not by you. The world stopped spinning. I don't understand, Claire whispered. Nathaniel's hand dropped. When he spoke again, his voice was ice. How long did you think you could deceive me, Claire? The study felt like a tomb. Claire's legs threatened to give out. You knew, she breathed. This whole time you knew. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. I suspected from the moment you walked down that aisle. Your footsteps were different. Lighter, uncertain. Vanessa always walked like she owned the ground beneath her feet. Then why didn't you stop the wedding? He turned away, his knuckles white on his cane. Because I wanted to know why. Why would Vanessa send her sister in her place? What kind of desperate situation would force a woman to marry a stranger under false pretenses? Claire's shame burned like acid. My family, we're drowning in debt. Vanessa ran away with her lover, and my mother said this marriage was our only chance. So you sacrificed yourself. His voice was bitter. How noble. Don't. Claire's voice cracked. Don't pretend this was noble. I'm a liar and a fraud. I took your money, your name, your trust, and I gave you nothing but deception in return. Nathaniel's shoulders sagged. For a long moment, neither spoke. What happens now? Claire finally asked. Now? He laughed, a harsh sound. Now I have a choice. I can expose you, annul this marriage, and watch your family collapse. Or I can pretend I'm still blind to the truth. You should expose me. I deserve it. Do you? He moved closer, and Claire could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from him. These past 2 weeks, I've learned more about you than I ever knew about Vanessa. The way you read to me in the evenings, choosing books you think I'll enjoy, how you've been learning Braille so we can share written notes, the gentleness in your voice when you think I'm sleeping. Tears streamed down Claire's face. Those things don't excuse what I've done. No, they don't. His hand found her cheek again, wiping away her tears. But they complicate everything. Before Claire could respond, the study door burst open. Mrs. Chen stood there, her face pale. Mr. Grant, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here. She says she's your wife. Claire's blood turned to ice. Vanessa swept into the room like a hurricane, her designer dress clinging to her curves, her makeup flawless. She looked exactly as Clare remembered, beautiful and dangerous and utterly self-assured. "Hello, darling," Vanessa purred, her eyes fixed on Nathaniel. "Did you miss me?" Nathaniel's expression hardened. "Vanessa. Surprise." She moved closer, ignoring Clare completely. "I know I left rather dramatically, but Marcus and I had a terrible fight. I realized I made a mistake. This is where I belong. With you." Claire felt like she was watching a car crash. "Vanessa, you can't just— Oh, sweet Claire." Vanessa finally acknowledged her sister, and the contempt in her voice was withering. "Still playing dress-up, I see. It's over now. The real bride has returned." Nathaniel's hand tightened on his cane. "You think you can walk away and then waltz back in whenever it suits you? I think you're blind and you love me." Vanessa's smile was cruel. "I think Claire has been a poor substitute, and you'll be grateful to have me back. After all, she's not the one you fell in love with, is she?" The words struck Claire like physical blows. Because Vanessa was right. Nathaniel had fallen for the woman in those letters. The poetic, passionate woman who wrote about sunsets and dreams. Not the quiet, uncertain girl who'd taken her place. "You're wrong," Nathaniel said quietly. Vanessa blinked. "Excuse me? You think I can't tell the difference between you and Claire?" "I knew from the first moment. Your voice is sharper, your laugh more calculated. You move through the world like it owes you something. Claire moves like she's afraid to take up space." Vanessa's face flushed. "Then why did you let her stay?" "Because she's worth 10 of you." Nathaniel's words hung in the air like a benediction. "She stayed not because she wanted to deceive me, but because she had no choice. You left because you only ever cared about yourself." Vanessa's expression twisted into something ugly. "You'll regret this. I'll tell everyone. I'll destroy you both. Try it." Nathaniel's voice was steel. "I have the best lawyers in the country, and you signed a prenuptial agreement that you clearly didn't read. The moment you abandoned our marriage, you forfeited everything. Now get out of my house." Vanessa's eyes blazed with fury. She turned to Claire, and what she said next changed everything. "You want to know why I really left?" Her smile was poisonous. "Because he's dying, Claire. Nathaniel has a degenerative condition. That surgery he's so excited about? It's experimental, dangerous, and probably won't work. The doctors gave him 2 years, maybe less. I wasn't about to waste my life playing nursemaid to a dying blind man." The words detonated like a bomb. Claire's gaze swung to Nathaniel, whose face had gone ashen. "Is it true?" Claire's voice barely worked. Nathaniel's silence was answer enough. Vanessa laughed, bitter and triumphant. "Enjoy your prize, little sister. You've won yourself a dying man and a mansion that will become your tomb." She left in a whirlwind of expensive perfume and malice. Claire stood frozen, her mind reeling. Everything made sense now. The urgency of the surgery, the careful way Nathaniel lived each day, as if time itself was precious. "You weren't going to tell me," she whispered. Nathaniel's shoulders slumped in defeat. "No, why?" "Because I didn't want your pity. I didn't want you to stay out of obligation." He turned toward her, and his face was raw with emotion. "These past 2 weeks have been the happiest of my life, Claire. For the first time, I felt like someone saw me. Not my money, not my disability, not my mortality. Just me." Claire's heart shattered and reformed in the same instant. She crossed the room and took his face in her hands. "Then let me keep seeing you," she said, "for whatever time we have. You don't know what you're signing up for." "Yes, I do." Her voice was steady now, certain. "I'm signing up for the man who listens when I speak, who treats me like I matter, who makes me feel brave enough to be myself." Nathaniel's hands covered hers. "This isn't the marriage you agreed to." "Nothing about this marriage has been what either of us agreed to." Claire smiled through her tears. "Maybe it's time we made our own agreement. And what would that be?" She leaned forward, her lips close to his ear. "Stay, fight, live, for as long as we can, as fully as we can, together." For the first time since Vanessa's arrival, Nathaniel smiled. It was small, fragile, and more precious than anything Claire had ever seen. "Together," he agreed. But as she held him, Claire couldn't shake the weight of Vanessa's revelation. The clock was ticking, and she'd just committed herself to a man who might not see the next year. 3 weeks later, Claire sat in Dr. Martinez's office, listening to words that would change everything. "The surgery can't happen," the doctor said gently. "Not unless we find a matching donor for the corneal tissue. Nathaniel's condition is too advanced. Without it, the procedure is too risky." Claire's hands gripped the armrests. "What are the chances of finding a donor?" "In time, minimal. His genetic markers are extremely rare." Dr. Martinez leaned forward. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Grant. Without this surgery, Nathaniel has perhaps 18 months before the condition affects his other neurological functions." The drive home was silent. Claire watched the city blur past, her mind racing. That evening, she found Nathaniel in his study, listening to vinyl records, his fingers tracing the grooves as if reading Braille. "You saw Dr. Martinez today," he said without turning. "I can tell by the way you're standing." "What did she say?" Claire moved to sit beside him. "They need a donor. Someone with matching genetic markers." His jaw tightened. "Then it's over." "No." Claire took his hand. "There has to be another way." "Claire." His voice was gentle, resigned. "We both knew this was borrowed time. I've made peace with it." "Well, I haven't." She stood abruptly. "I won't." Over the next week, Claire became obsessed. She spent hours researching, making calls, following leads that went nowhere. She barely slept, barely ate. Nathaniel watched her destroy herself with worry, and it broke something in him. "Stop," he said one night, finding her in the study at 3 a.m, surrounded by medical journals. "Please, Claire, stop." "I can't." Her voice was hoarse. "I won't watch you die." He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. "Then don't watch, live, be here with me now, in this moment. That's all I'm asking." Claire buried her face in his chest, breathing in his scent, memorizing the steady beat of his heart. It's not enough. It has to be. But Claire had already made her decision. The next morning, she met with Dr. Martinez privately. "Test me," Claire said. The doctor frowned. "Mrs. Grant, the chances of you being a match—" "Test me anyway." 3 days later, Dr. Martinez called her back. The woman's face was ashen. "You're a match," she said quietly. "A perfect match." Claire's heart soared and plummeted in the same instant. "Then we can do the surgery." "It's not that simple." Dr. Martinez pulled up scans on her computer. "Your sister, Vanessa, was also tested during the initial screening process. Her genetic markers are nearly identical to yours, which makes sense for siblings. But Claire, if we use your tissue, there are risks." "What kind of risks?" "The procedure would require removing a significant portion of your own corneal tissue. You'd be left with severe vision impairment, possibly blindness in one eye. There's also a chance of complications that could affect both eyes." The room tilted. "But Nathaniel would see?" "The chances of success increase significantly with a genetic match, yes." Claire stared at the scans, at the technical data that represented her future. A future where she might never see a sunset again, never read a book, never look at her own reflection. A future in the dark while Nathaniel stepped into the light. "Do it," she said. "Claire, do it. Don't tell him. Schedule the surgery, use my tissue, and don't tell him until after." Dr. Martinez looked at her with something like awe and horror. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." That night, Claire held Nathaniel close, memorizing every detail she could see. The way his hair fell across his forehead, the scar on his left eyebrow from a childhood accident, the exact shade of his lips. "What are you doing?" he murmured sleepily. "Memorizing you," he smiled. "I'm not going anywhere." But Claire was. Into the dark, so he could see the light. The surgery was scheduled for the following week. Claire spent those days living with desperate intensity. She dragged Nathaniel to art museums, describing every painting in exhaustive detail. She took him to the ocean and painted word pictures of the waves. She photographed everything, building a visual library for the day when she might not see it anymore. "You're different," Nathaniel observed. "Frantic. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Claire kissed him, pouring everything she felt into that single gesture. "Everything is right. Finally right." The night before the surgery, Nathaniel held her in the darkness. "I love you," he said quietly. I don't know when it happened, but somewhere between the deception and the truth, I fell in love with you." Claire's tears soaked into his shirt. "I love you too. Then promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll live. Even after I'm gone, you'll keep living." Claire held him tighter, knowing she was about to break that promise in the worst possible way, because living without him wasn't an option. But giving him life, giving him sight, giving him a future even if she couldn't be there to see it, that was worth any price. "I promise." She lied one last time. The next morning, Dr. Martinez performed both surgeries simultaneously. In one operating room, they removed Claire's corneal tissue. In another, they transplanted it to Nathaniel. When Nathaniel woke, bandages covering his eyes, his first word was her name. "Claire?" A nurse's voice answered. "Mrs. Grant is resting. The surgery went well. We'll remove the bandages in a week." But Claire wasn't resting. She was 3 rooms away, fighting for consciousness, her eyes bandaged, her future uncertain. The complications Dr. Martinez had warned about had materialized. Both eyes were affected. The damage was extensive. When she finally woke, Dr. Martinez's voice was gentle. "I'm sorry, Claire. The procedure took more than we anticipated. Your left eye has minimal function. Your right eye has severe damage. With therapy and time, you might regain partial vision, but I'll be blind." "Likely, yes." Claire absorbed this in silence. Then she smiled, even though no one could see it. "Did Nathaniel's surgery work? We won't know until we remove the bandages, but the initial signs are promising." "Then it was worth it." 6 days later, Claire sat in a wheelchair outside Nathaniel's room. She couldn't see him, but she could hear Dr. Martinez explaining what would happen next. "We're going to remove the bandages now, Mr. Grant. Open your eyes slowly. The light will be intense at first." Claire held her breath. The silence stretched like eternity. Then Nathaniel's voice, filled with wonder and confusion, and something that sounded like grief. "I can see." A pause. "Where is Claire? Why isn't she here?" "Mr. Grant, there's something we need to tell you." Claire heard footsteps, heard Nathaniel's sharp intake of breath as someone, probably Dr. Martinez, explained what had happened. Explained what Claire had done. "No." His voice was raw. No. Where is she? Where is my wife? I'm here." Claire wheeled herself through the doorway, her bandaged eyes turning toward the sound of his voice. The silence that followed was unbearable. "What did you do?" Nathaniel's voice was broken. "Claire, what did you do?" "What I had to." She smiled in his direction. "Can you see me? Can I—" He choked on the words. "You're blind. You sacrificed your sight for mine. Yes. Why?" The word was a howl of pain. Claire reached out her hand, waiting. After a moment, she felt his fingers intertwine with hers. "Because you were right," she said softly. "These weeks with you have been the happiest of my life. And I realized that I'd rather spend the rest of my days in darkness with you than in light without you. You needed to see, Nathaniel. You needed to live. So I gave you my eyes. You had no right." His voice shook with fury and anguish. "You had no right to make that choice." "I know." Claire's smile never wavered. "But I did it anyway." Nathaniel pulled her from the wheelchair into his arms, and she felt his tears falling onto her face. "You beautiful, foolish, impossible woman. What am I supposed to do now? Now?" Claire whispered against his chest. "Now you be my eyes, and I'll be your heart, just like we promised. Together." 6 months later, Claire stood on the terrace of the Grant mansion, her face tilted toward the warmth she knew was sunlight. She couldn't see it, but she could feel it, and that was enough. Arms wrapped around her from behind, and she leaned back into Nathaniel's embrace. "Tell me what you see," she said softly. It had become their ritual. Every morning, Nathaniel would describe the world to her in excruciating detail. Not the poetic fabrications Vanessa had written, but the real, honest truth of things. "The sky is gray today," he said, his voice warm against her ear. "Heavy clouds like bruises. But there's a break in the east, and the light coming through is gold. It hits the garden and makes the wet grass look like it's on fire. There's a bird on the fountain, a sparrow, shaking water from its feathers." "It looks annoyed," Claire laughed. "Annoyed?" "Definitely annoyed. Very put out by the whole situation." She turned in his arms, her hands finding his face with practiced ease. 6 months of blindness had taught her to read him in new ways. The tension in his jaw when he was worried, the slight upturn of his lips when he was amused, the warmth of his skin when he looked at her with love. "How are you feeling?" she asked. It was another ritual. The surgery had been a success, but Nathaniel's underlying condition remained. They lived in borrowed time, measuring their life in moments rather than years. "Strong today," he said. "Dr. Martinez says the experimental treatment is working better than they hoped. I might have 5 years, Claire, maybe more. 5 years. It should have felt like a death sentence. Instead, it felt like a gift." "Then we'd better not waste them," Claire said. They didn't. Every day became an adventure. Nathaniel described sunsets and starfields, museum paintings and city streets. Claire taught him to read emotions through touch, to hear the truth beneath words, to navigate the world through senses he'd never fully appreciated before. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. She'd spent her life invisible, overlooked in Vanessa's shadow. He'd spent his life in darkness, isolated by wealth and disability. Now, in losing and gaining sight, they'd finally learned to truly see each other. "I got a letter today," Nathaniel said one afternoon as they sat in the garden. "From Vanessa." Claire stiffened. "What did it say?" "She's getting married. To Marcus, the man she ran away with. She wanted us to know she's happy. How do you feel about that?" Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. "Grateful. She gave me something precious when she ran away." "She gave me you." Claire smiled. "That's a generous interpretation." "It's the truth." He took her hand. "Claire, I need to tell you something. About the surgery, about what you did." Her heart skipped. "What about it?" "Dr. Martinez told me there was a chance. A small one, but a chance that your vision might return. The damage wasn't as permanent as they initially thought." Hope flared in Claire's chest, sharp and painful. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I've hired the best specialists in the world. They think with surgery, therapy, intensive treatment, you might regain partial sight in your right eye." Tears spilled down Claire's cheeks. "Nathaniel, I know you did it willingly. I know you'd do it again. But let me give you this, Claire. Let me give you back what you gave me." The surgery happened 3 months later. When they removed the bandages, the world swam into focus slowly, hazily, like waking from a dream. Claire's right eye could see shapes, light and shadow, the broad strokes of the world around her. It wasn't perfect. Her left eye remained sightless, and she'd never have the clarity she once possessed. But when she turned her head and saw Nathaniel's face for the first time since her sacrifice, saw the love in his eyes, saw the man she'd married in truth rather than deception, it was more than enough. "Hi," she whispered. He smiled, and it was beautiful. Hi, they had 3 years together. 3 years of borrowed time, stolen moments, and fierce, defiant joy. Nathaniel's condition progressed slowly, but it progressed. Claire watched him grow weaker, watched the man who'd learned to see begin to lose other things. Memory, strength, time itself. But they'd promised each other they would live, and they kept that promise. On a spring morning, with sunlight streaming through the bedroom windows, Nathaniel took his last breath. Claire held his hand, her partial vision blurred with tears, and whispered the same words she'd spoken on their wedding day. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will. Forever." The funeral was small. Claire stood at the graveside, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face, and knew Nathaniel would have appreciated the irony. He'd spent his whole life in darkness, and he left the world on the brightest day of the year. 6 months after his death, Claire received an envelope. Inside was a letter in Nathaniel's handwriting, written before he died. "My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, then our borrowed time has ended. I want you to know that every moment with you was worth the cost. You gave me sight. But more importantly, you gave me love. Real love. Not the fantasy Vanessa created, but the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of 2 broken people choosing each other. I know you'll grieve. I know you'll feel like you lost something precious. But you didn't lose me, Claire. You set me free. You gave me a life worth living and a death worth dying. Now I need you to do something for me. I need you to live. Not just survive, but really live. See the world with the eyes I gave back to you. Build something beautiful. Love again if you can. Don't let our story end in darkness. You taught me to see. Claire, now let me teach you to fly, all my love. Forever and always, Nathaniel. Claire folded the letter carefully, her partial vision making the words swim. Then she stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the world. It was imperfect, hazy, incomplete. But it was hers. They'd bought it together with sacrifice and love and impossible choices. She thought about the woman she'd been, walking down that aisle in her sister's wedding dress, drowning in deception and fear. She thought about the man who'd known she was lying and chosen to love her anyway. She thought about sight and blindness, truth and deception, the beautiful complexity of two people finding each other in the dark. Then Claire smiled, feeling the sun on her face, and began to plan her future. A foundation for genetic research, a charity for the blind, a legacy built on the ruins of a lie that had somehow become the truest thing in her life. She'd started this story as an imposter, wearing someone else's life. She'd ended as herself, finally, completely, unapologetically. And somewhere, she liked to think, Nathaniel was watching. Finally seeing her the way she'd always deserved to be seen, not as Vanessa's shadow, or a replacement, or a sacrifice. Just as Claire. Enough, at last. The end.